Ladies and gentlemen, we kindly request you to take your seats as the event will be starting in a few minutes' time.
Recent health emergencies like COVID-19, Mpox, and Ebola, as well as other zoonotic diseases like rabies, some vector-borne diseases such as yellow fever, and other threats like antimicrobial resistance and foodborne diseases, all illustrate the strong relationship between the health of humans, animals, plants, and the environment we share. For instance, around 75% of all emerging infectious human diseases originate in animals. Human activities, including irresponsible land use and deforestation, result in people and domestic animals encroaching into wild areas. This increases the risk of new or re-emerging pathogens spilling over between wildlife, domestic animals, and humans. Many other factors can affect the distribution of diseases. The climate crisis has led to unpredictable and extreme weather events like floods, droughts, and wildfires, with a huge impact on animal, human, and plant populations, and the environment itself. Similarly, biodiversity loss undermines the ecosystem's ability to mitigate the spread of infectious diseases across species. Collaboration across sectors and disciplines through a One Health approach is a vital need for addressing the complex health challenges facing our society. No one organization can do it alone. Therefore, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the UN Environment Programme, the World Health Organization, and the World Organization for Animal Health have come together as a quadripartite. They have launched the One Health Joint Plan of Action to integrate and coordinate strategies and actions across the human, animal, plants, and environmental sectors. This new plan focuses on supporting and scaling up countries' capacities in 6 main areas: health systems, zoonotic diseases, neglected tropical and vector-borne diseases, food safety, antimicrobial resistance, and the environment. It promotes the health of humans, animals, plants, and the environment by providing guidance and tools to coordinate multi-sectoral approaches to prevent and manage health risks at the human, animal, plant, environment interface. There is only one planet and one health. Together, we can build a safer, healthier, fairer, and sustainable world for all.
Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to all our distinguished guests, both in person and online. We welcome you to One Health and its environmental dimension in the Asia-Pacific region. As you know, One Health is a unifying approach that seeks to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems. It recognizes that the health of animals, humans, plants, and the wider environment are closely linked and interdependent. A One Health approach is essential to prevent, detect, and control diseases that spread between animals and humans, as well as to tackle antimicrobial resistance, ensure food safety, prevent environment-related health threats, and combat many other challenges. We would like to acknowledge and appreciate the European Union for sponsoring today's event, which is jointly organized by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, the World Health Organization, WHO, and the World Organization for Animal Health, WOAH. This evening's event aims to showcase key initiatives in the region that are helping to accelerate efforts towards implementing One Health and its environmental dimension in particular. We will hear from honorable speakers representing diverse stakeholder groups and gain an opportunity to reflect on achievements and lessons learned in the region. To deliver the opening remarks on behalf of the 4 organizing bodies, the quadripartite, I would first like to kindly invite the Deputy Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, Ms. Elizabeth Mrema.
Good evening, all distinguished delegates present in the room. And allow me first to begin by thanking the Minister of Environment here, Sri Lanka, Dr. Jasinge, together with the people of this beautiful country, Sri Lanka, for inviting us and bringing us all here in Colombo. From the UN family, I would like to recognize our UN Resident Coordinator, Mark French, who brings the UN family here in Sri Lanka to work as one UN and not just UNEP. We have guests, and I would like equally to recognize Assistant Minister for Environment in the Prime Minister's Office from Fiji, His Excellency Tubona, and also a colleague and friend, Director General of the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, or SPREP, Mr. Nawadra. And gladly I can see him. And all then distinguished delegates, colleagues, friends here. And thank you very much for having me this late afternoon or evening. And I'm really honored here to speak on behalf of the Quadripartite Alliance on One Health. And this is the alliance or an ambitious partnership between us, the UN Environment Programme, the World Health Organization, the Food and Agricultural Organization, and the World Organization for Animal Health. I don't need to repeat, but we all know that One Health goal is basically meant to address the most pressing questions facing humanity today. And this is, how do we ensure the long-term health of our people and the planet? Because right now, literally, our earth is sick, and I dare to say sick, just as many of us. We don't want to go around the room, but probably more than half of us will be having one ailment or the other, majority of which are environmental pollution or degradation related. The catastrophic mix of climate change, biodiversity, nature loss, and pollution is literally tearing apart the fabric of the natural world and leaving humanity dangerously exposed to a range of healthy threats. Just to give an example, and we all know what we are seeing daily, literally is becoming a daily event: floods, drought, heat waves, wildfires, all are pointed end of the climate crisis and continue to take lives of many around the world. And that is lives, not mentioning the social and economic impacts which come about with these crises. The raising of forests and other wild places is raising the buffer zone between people and animal, making it easier for pandemic-causing pathogens to jump between species, and in this context, the Asia-Pacific region has been, we know in the past years, the origin of several new or novel and concerning zoonotic diseases in the recent past. And researchers continue to warn us that the next global pandemic might even originate from this region. So literally, we have work to do to prevent any possible future pandemic. And pollution has risen the crisis levels, contributing to what we call silent pandemic of antimicrobial resistance, which has already been responsible for an estimated 5 million deaths only in 2019 alone. Air pollution is the most pressing environmental health crisis in the world today and is responsible for more than 6.5 million deaths annually, 70% of which occur in this region, Asia and Pacific. That's not a small statistics. Countries in the Pacific are and will continue to be among the hardest hit by the impacts of climate change, including the likely detrimental effects on health. As the casualties of environmental degradation mount, one thing is very clear: we cannot be healthy if our planet is sick. So, how do we solve this dilemma of ensuring we are healthy, but before we become healthy, that planet is a sustainable, clean planet? And the answer lies in One Health approach, because this is the strategy at the core of solving this problem, because it recognizes the health of humans, the health of the animals, and the health of the planet as intrinsically connected and linked. So only by ending the wanton destruction of wild species and living more harmoniously with nature can we only be able to deliver the long-term improvements in public health and food security, both of which are crucial to sustainable development. In recent years, the idea behind One Health has become even increasingly popular because One Health is particularly relevant in this region of Asia and Pacific, as it is going already through large-scale and rapid changes in landscape, in trade, in consumption pattern, and is a region which is one of the global hotspots for emerging infectious diseases caused by transmission from animals to humans. So clearly, we all urgently and need to dramatically scale up the application of One Health because there is already a myriad of health threats around the corner. Just one example. One of the recent studies has already found out that half of the infectious diseases have been made worse by climate change. And those include everything from malaria to pneumonia to Ebola to the COVID-19, as scientists alleged. So the urgency of the situation begs the question, how can we all popularize the One Health approach as an opportune solution to the ongoing natural disaster? Well, there are things we can do, and I will only give an example of few. Firstly, One Health-related initiatives must be integrated into efforts by member states to implement a number and most of the multilateral environmental agreements for which the member states here are parties to many of them. This is specifically true for climate change, for biodiversity loss, as well as pollution and waste. Encouragingly, we know a number of countries in Asia and Pacific have already diversity strategies and action plans. And at even the recent Asia Pacific Quadripartite One Health workshop, which was held earlier last month, September, in Bangkok, where we are able to see the ongoing efforts towards revising the national biodiversity strategies and action plans in alignment with the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which was adopted last year in Montreal, because that for countries to achieve this integration. Secondly, we need to popularize the One Health strategies, and to do so, we need to provide those opportunities to policymakers, to researchers, and others to share their experiences with that approach. This will be crucial if we are to better understand and ultimately between human, animals, and planetary health. And one good example is Nature for Health Partnership, which is active already in Mongolia and Vietnam in this region, Asia and Pacific. Organizations, including UN Environment Program, aspects of One Health. Thirdly, we need to popularize the approach, and to do so, we must first focus on breaking the silos, which has been probably the worst disease of how we have been operating. So breaking the silos, fostering cooperation across a range of sectors, as well as government bodies, through what we call One Health, whole of government, whole of society approach to One Health. And this, of course, we know is not always easy, but it can be done because clearly one single entity, despite all the expertise and experience it may have, cannot deal with these multiple issues in isolation or these multiple human planetary health crises alone. We need each other as individuals, as government entities, as UN entities, as well as other stakeholders. So in Asia and Pacific region, the Quadripartite Alliance partners have been supporting a number of member states in taking that cross-sectorial approach in applying One Health. And we've done this through active engagement of human health, animal health, and environmental sectors. We have seen the support of ASEAN efforts on One Health in the development of ASEAN One Health Network and ASEAN One Health Joint Plan of Action through the engagement of multiple sectors as one example in our efforts in this region alone. And fourthly and finally, we should not be fickle. By that, I mean we cannot only turn the One Health approach when we are in the middle of crisis, the way we were during the COVID-19. The One Health approach needs the political commitment to its tenants. It needs a steady supply of resources, no matter which way the wind is blowing in a given day. Investing in One Health makes economic sense. For zoonotic diseases, evidence shows prevention costs 1/20 of the value of the lives lost annually. So there is an economic case when we deal with prevention, and we should not wait until when we're struck with the pandemic, only to begin all of us running and take now that not proactive action, but then it's action to deal the problem of the time, which has more environmental impacts moving forward. So, distinguished delegates, I know much might sound like a tall order, but these changes will only take a fraction of the time, a fraction of the resources, a fraction of the efforts to mending off another pandemic. So to put it simply, One Healthy is only a prescription for the ailing planet, and let us all embrace it, the One Health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Mrema. Ms. Mrema said, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. I would also like to invite the Secretary to the Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka, Dr. Anil Jasinghe, to deliver his opening remarks.
Good evening. Ms. Elizabeth Mrema, the Deputy Executive Director of UNEP. Mr. Marc-Andre Franche, UN Resident Coordinator for Sri Lanka. Ms. Kubota, UNDP Resident Coordinator. Excellencies, members of Quadripartite Partners, FAO, UNEP, WHO, and WOH, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is both a pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to this side event, One Health and its environmental dimension in the Asia-Pacific region, and to deliver the opening remarks at this side event. It is both a pleasure and an honor to welcome, environment consists of biotic and abiotic components where the living and non-living components maintain mutual relationship within the ecosystem. The environment balance depends on this relationship. The human tries to dominate the environment, they are also considered part of the nature. All living beings from the physical environment. A change that occurs in one component causes changes in the whole environment. When world human populations are growing and expanding into new geographic areas, the need of the people as well as their complexity to increase. Some technological advancements and production processes put immense pressure on the environment. Due to the use of modern technology and increase of production, humans had to go a speedier journey surpassing the environment. The environmental balance began to collapse due to the excessive addition of different types of waste, solid waste, liquid waste, chemical waste, and other hazardous waste to the environment and adverse effect on the components of it. As all of you know, One Health is an integral approach aimed at preventing and mitigating health threats at the interfaces of humans, animals, plants, and broader environment. Its objective is to achieve public health, food and nutrition security, and sustainable ecosystem management, which supports the protection and promotion of the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. Over the past century, economic, technological, and social advancements have placed a strain on Earth's capacity to sustain human well-being. This, combined with the triple planetary crisis consisting of climate change, nature, and biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste, has intensified emerging health threats, including infectious diseases with pandemic potential, which disproportionately affect groups in vulnerable situations. 75% of emerging and re-emerging infectious diseases originate from animals, with the Asia-Pacific region being the source of several concerning zoonotic diseases. Unfavorable effects that occur due to the collapse of environment balance affect the whole environment on planet. At present, as never before in the human history, we are putting extreme pressures on the planet as mentioned in the above, and it has faced severe crises named as triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. One Health is one of the main approaches for addressing the triple planetary crisis and complex health challenges facing our society, animal, and environment, such as ecosystem degradation, food system failures, infectious diseases, and antimicrobial resistance. One Health is not new, but it has come more important in recent years. As request made by tripartite and following the 27th tripartite annual executive meeting in March 2021, the tripartite and the UNEP agreed to jointly develop a strategy and action plan to prevent future pandemics through the One Health approach. In March 2022, at the 28th tripartite annual executive meeting, the four organizations signed memorandum and understanding to reflect a change from a tripartite to a new quadripartite partnership with UNEP as an equal partner. The One Health concept clearly focuses on consequences, responses, and actions at the animal-human ecosystem interfaces, and especially emerging and endemic zoonoses, the latter being responsible for much greater burden of disease in the developing world, with a major societal impact in resource-poor settings, antimicrobial resistance, as resistance can arise in humans, animals, or environment, and may spread from one to the other and from one country to another, and food safety. However, the scope of One Health is envisaged by international organizations and many national organizations also clearly embraces the other disciplines and domains, including environmental and ecosystem health, social sciences, ecology, wildlife, and land use and biodiversity. The One Health approach is also particularly relevant for emerging, re-emerging, and endemic zoonotic diseases, neglected tropical diseases, vector-borne diseases, antimicrobial resistance, food and water safety and food security, environmental contamination, climate change, and other health threats shared by people, animal, and environment. Some 60% of emerging infectious diseases that are reported globally come from animals, both wild and domestic. Over 30 new human pathogens have been detected in the last 3 decades, 75% of which have originated in animals. Therefore, responding to international requests to prevent future pandemics and to promote health sustainably through One Health approach, the quadripartite has developed One Health Joint Plan of Action 2022-2026. The One Health Joint Plan Action is built around 6 independent action tracks that collectively contribute to achieving sustainable health and food systems, reduced global health threats, and improved ecosystem management. Action Track 6, integrating the environment into One Health. Each action track consists of a set of actions which specifies activities, deliverables, and a timeline to achieve the objectives. Action Track 6 recognizes that health of humans, domestic and wild animals, plants, and the environment are closely linked and independent, and in every form of environment degradation has direct or indirect negative consequences for human and animal health. The effects of air, water, and soil pollution on environment and animal health are considered in the Joint Action Plan. For example, biological and chemical pollutants in wastewater and runoff from livestock farms enhance the propagation of antimicrobial resistant genes in the environment. In addition to air pollution of the indoor and outdoor environment by chemical, physical, or biological agents, freshwater and ocean pollution leads to accumulation of toxic chemicals, heavy metals, and microplastics in the human food chain, causing adverse health outcomes in humans and domestic and wild animals. We highly consider actions proposed by the One Health Joint Plan of Action and need to collaborate collectively as region to achieve the targets in order to address the human health, animal health, and environment health. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jasinghe, for stressing the symbiosis that affects us all. Next, I would like to invite the UN Resident Coordinator for Sri Lanka, Mr. Marc-André Franche, to deliver his opening remarks.
Dr. Anil Jasinghe, Secretary of the Ministry of Environment, Ms. Elizabeth Mirema, Deputy Executive Director of UNEP, Excellencies, colleagues, distinguished guests, good evening. I first want to congratulate the 4 partners that have come together, FAO, UNEP, WHO, and the World Organization for Animal Health, for your leadership on One Health and for organizing this session. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here on behalf of the entire United Nations team here in Sri Lanka. As we all know too well, the triple planetary crisis, the impact of climate change, the crisis of nature and biodiversity loss, and the crisis of pollution and waste that the Secretary has highlighted so deeply is now a stark reality. Our theme this evening, One Health, resonates with the urgent need to integrate our efforts to address these crises across sectors. The purity of our air, the safety of our water, and the preservation of wildlife are not isolated elements, but are deeply intertwined with our collective health and well-being. One Health serves as an integrated strategy that aims to harmonize the wellness of people, animals, and ecosystems. Initially, the One Health approach focused solely on zoonotic diseases, antimicrobial resistance, and food safety. In 2021, it was revised to acknowledge that our endeavors should not only address threats to human and animal health, but also those surrounding our environment and ecosystems. They include interventions needed to preserve our environment, confronting the triple planetary crisis, and in turn, advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. The partnership that was forged between FAO, WHO, UNEP, and the World Organization for Animal Health is a groundbreaking step to enhance collaboration around the health of humans, animals, plants, and our shared environment. Together, these organizations created a joint plan of action to engage political leaders to ensure the right infrastructure and funding at the country level. In Sri Lanka, this partnership is supporting the country in mitigating crisis across several sectors, including the development of a risk assessment tool, providing a consistent and harmonized approach for assessing risk posed by zoonotic diseases, joint actions to reduce antimicrobial resistance, and many others. Collaboration around One Health enabled Sri Lanka to become the 45th member state to conduct a workshop to bridge international health regulation and performance of veterinary services. The event allowed health services to review the situation, develop a roadmap for corrective actions, and mobilize investments to prevent, detect, and control the spread of diseases. Aiming for zero human rabies death by 2030, the UN in Sri Lanka has supported the application of robust public health intervention such as dog vaccination and rabies post-exposure prophylaxis. Sri Lanka has now moved from 377 rabies-related human deaths in the mid-1970s to just 28 last year. This stands as a testament to the efficacy of comprehensive public health interventions and the One Health approach. In closing, I would like to commend the government of Sri Lanka for its proactive commitment to expanding its health budget, including in the upcoming budget, despite the very difficult fiscal situation. Adequate funding in the health sector is pivotal for accelerating the country's pursuit of global health standards. This commitment is a clear indication of Sri Lanka's resolve not only to address immediate health concerns, but also to prioritize public health for generations to come. The event tonight reminds us that the regional and cross-sectoral partnerships are the foundation for a successful, holistic approach to health and well-being. I thank you for your continued commitment and look forward to collaborating to ensure that our collective efforts make a lasting impact for all Sri Lankans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Franch, for describing how One Health can help combat the triple planetary crisis. I would next like to invite Ms. Kayani Maywish Arshad, representative of Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP, to deliver her opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. I'm deeply honored to stand before you all at Asia Pacific Ministerial Forum 2023. I want to express my sincere gratitude to all the organizers, UNEP, WHO, FAO, World Organization on Animal Health, on behalf of Children and Youth Major Group. I'm thankful to them for inviting me to share, few words in this esteemed gathering. We have gathered here to discuss a topic of paramount paramount importance, one that transcends borders, languages, and cultures, the concept of One Health. More specifically, we are here to explore the environmental dimension of One Health and its critical role in safeguarding the health of both people and the planet. The term One Health encapsulates a fundamental truth that the health of humans, animals, and the environment is inextricably interconnected. We all are part of a delicate web of life where the well-being of one component is interlinked with the well-being of the other component. When we speak of the environment dimension of One Health, we are shining a spotlight on a core aspect of integrated relationship. The environment, with its ecosystem, biodiversity, and natural resources, provides the very foundation upon which all life on Earth depends. It is the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. However, our planet's health is at critical juncture. We are grappling with challenges that threaten the delicate balance of our ecosystem, climate change, habitat loss, pollution, and the depletion of vital resources. These challenges not only affect the environment, but also have profound implications for human and animal health. This is why it is imperative that we scale up One Health-related initiatives. They encompass the objectives ranging from eradicating poverty and hunger, to ensuring health and well-being, fostering responsible consumption, and taking urgent action to combat climate change. We also acknowledge that safeguarding the health of people and our planet is not just a moral imperative, but a practical necessity. It is an investment in our shared future, one that holds the promise of healthier communities, resilient ecosystem, and a sustainable world for generations to come. As we embark to this January exploration and collaboration during Ministerial Forum, let us remember that our action today will shape the world we leave for our children and grandchildren. Let us harness the power of knowledge, innovation, and collective action to address the environmental dimension of One Health comprehensively. I look forward to get engaged in thought-provoking discussion, sharing insights, and working together to chart a course towards a healthier, more sustainable future. Thank you for your attention, and let us make the most of the time together over this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Arshad, for highlighting the importance of maintaining that delicate balance that we all operate within. Ladies and gentlemen, now that we have all been warmly welcomed, we have 3 engaging sessions lined up for you. The first session will set the scene on the crucial role of the environmental dimension of One Health. The second session will cover a very timely topic, strengthening environmental dimensions in pandemic preparedness. And the third and final session will be focused on promoting actions to strengthen the interface between human health, animal health, and the environment. And finally, of course, we will conclude the evening with a dinner reception. I would now like to invite the chair for our first session of the evening to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the regional representative for Asia and the Pacific of the World Organization for Animal Health, Dr. Hirofumi Kugita.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, you're here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hirofumi Kugita, WOA Regional Representative for Asia and Pacific, based in Tokyo, Japan. I'm very happy to be a chair for session 1. And as you know, we are a bit behind the schedule. I like to thank you, everyone, for staying with us despite very late in the evening. Okay. This session aims to provide a quick overview of environmental dimension of One Health, highlighting why it matters to the environmental sector and why the environment sector's active engagement in One Health is essential. So we have two presentations, and the first one is jointly presented by Ms. Makiko Yashiro, Regional Coordinator for Nature Action, UNEP Asia and Pacific Office, and Ms. Sally J. Edwards, Coordinator for Health and the Environment, Division of Health, Environment and Population, WHO Regional Office for the Western Pacific, UPRO. So I'd like to invite Ms. Makiko and Sally. Yes, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think much of what we are about to say has already been said, but let us give you a quick overview of One Health, and especially the environmental component of the quadripartite. So One Health was, next slide please. One Health was already on the international agenda before COVID, but COVID really heightened and reiterated its importance. There's been growing recognition of the interrelationship between humans, domestic and wild animals, plants, and the environment, and the implications of disease spillover from animals to people. These have resulted in various different pandemics over the years. We need environment, public health, animal health, and food security to speak with one voice and to implement harmonized interventions. Next slide, please. This need has been realized through increasing political commitment and international support for One Health. Next slide, please. And as has been previously mentioned, the inclusion of the United Nations Environment Programme into the One Health coalition that was originally WHO, FAO, and OIE, and then UNEP joined in March 2022. The Quadripartite Alliance urges countries and stakeholders to promote and undertake priority actions and policy adjustments in order to implement these changes. Next slide, please. Before this, however, back in November 2020, at the Paris Peace Forum, FAO, OIE, UNEP, and WHO created a multidisciplinary One Health high-level expert panel with the support of France and Germany. The new definition of One Health provided by this expert panel clearly recognizes that the health of humans, domestic and wild animals, plants, and the wider environment, including ecosystems, are closely linked and interdependent. It defines One Health as an integrated, unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystems. Next slide, please. The One Health Joint Plan of Action was officially launched by the Quadripartite Alliance in October 2022. It aims to mainstream and operationalize One Health at global, regional, and national levels. It also aims to strengthen the collaboration, communication, capacity building, and coordination across all sectors responsible for addressing health concerns at the human, animal, plant, environment interface. All the action tracks include the environmental dimension, not just Action Track 6, while Action Track 6 has the sole purpose to integrate the environment.
Thank you, Sally, and I'd like to continue with the presentation. So as Sally mentioned, Action Track 6 has a specific purpose to integrate the environment into One Health. So this is the area where the environment sector has a key role to play. Next slide, please. And as the environment sector is still relatively new to One Health, we need to ensure that the mandate and priorities of the environment sector are integrated into One Health approach and initiatives. And the overall objective of Action Track 6 is to protect and restore biodiversity, ecosystems, and the wider environment to jointly support the health of people, animals, plants, and ecosystems. So here you may realize that this is very much at the heart of what environmental community is already working on. And this action track covers areas such as protection and restoration of ecosystems, mainstream the environment into One Health approach, integrate environment knowledge, data, and evidence in One Health decision-making, and enhancing capacity of the environment, medical, agriculture, and veterinary sector professionals on One Health. Next slide, please. And there are examples of activities captured under Action Track 6, and they include activities such as integrating One Health in national strategies and action plans related to environment, and these are related also to multilateral environmental agreement, as mentioned by our Deputy Executive Director earlier. Promoting sound management of chemicals and waste, prevention, reduction, and control of pollution is another example of activity. So again, you see that these are exact activities that the environment ministries and other stakeholders have already been actively engaged. But I think the idea here is to scale up these existing efforts on environmental protection by clearly recognizing the interrelationships among environment, human health, and animal health sectors, and also recognize the core benefits of taking the cross-sectoral One Health approach. Next slide, please. So there are various existing initiatives related to the Action Track 6 that are ongoing in the region, and I'd like to highlight some of the examples here. So related to the first action area under Action Track 6, which focus on environmental protection, there have been significant efforts made by the environmental community. The examples include the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which is one of the examples, and it focuses on scaling up efforts towards restoring nature. There have also been various initiatives focused on addressing pollution issues in the region, covering air pollution, plastic pollution, and chemicals and waste. The environment sector has also been leading the implementation of multilateral environmental agreements, and efforts have also been made to support the mainstreaming of environment into One Health and various wildlife health networks and initiatives that include the environment sector have been developed and implemented in the region. And examples here include the Wildlife Health Framework and Wildlife Health Networks established by WOA in the region. Next slide, please. So relating to the integration of environmental knowledge, data, and evidence in One Health decision-making, there have also been initiatives focused on understanding value of nature and its linkages with health. For example, the Economics of Ecosystems and Biodiversity, TEEB Agri-Food Initiative, which focuses on highlighting the economic value of ecosystem services and biodiversity in agri-food sectors to support policy and decision-making. And there is also another example, which is the national ecosystem assessments undertaken in selected countries in Asia, which have also started to look at health impacts as part of the assessment. So that information generated through these initiatives certainly are very useful information to inform One Health related decision-making processes. Significant efforts have also been made in relation to One Health academic and in-service training programs, such as a program implemented by the FAO that targets in-service professionals from ministries dealing with forestry, wildlife, and environment to strengthen their capacity on One Health implementation at the national level. Next slide, please. The Asia-Pacific Quadripartite Alliance has been supporting the implementation of One Health in the region, and we have engaged with key partners in the region to enable better collaboration and networking on One Health agenda. And as mentioned earlier, just last month, we had a major workshop for countries in the region, bringing together ministries of health, agriculture, and environment to discuss a way forward for implementing One Health at the national level. And Asia-Pacific Quadripartite has also been supporting sub-regional bodies such as ASEAN in moving forward on the One Health agenda and initiatives. So we very much look forward to active engagement of environment sector partners in our future efforts. And this is the last slide. Next slide, please. So lastly, we thought it might be helpful for us to share some self-check questions to see to what extent the ministries of environment and other environment sector stakeholders have been engaged in One Health. And these questions are, for example, is One Health a priority in your country? Do you have a functional One Health platform, including the environment sector in your country? Because of limited time, I'm not going through these questions, but we thought these are some of the questions that you may ask to be able to understand the status of engagement on the environmental sector in your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sally and Makiko, for introducing Quadripartite One Health Joint Plan of Action. This is a good introduction of this side event. Next presentation is a pre-recorded presentation from Mr. Julian Blanc, One Health Coordinator, Biodiversity and Land Branch, UNEP Ecosystem Division. And yes, so could you please play the pre-recorded video?
Hello, my name is Julian Blanc and I'm the One Health Coordinator of the UN Environment Programme in Nairobi. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak to you today at this important meeting. And what I'd like to do in this short presentation is to persuade you that the best way we can tackle environmental and health challenges is through cooperation and coordination across all of government and all of society. But for that to happen, the environment sector needs to be a full partner in the One Health approach. Nature is the foundation of our economy and our well-being. Our current development model relies on extracting and transforming natural resources in the service of economic growth. In the last 50 years, economic activity and human prosperity have surged, along with a doubling of our population. But we're doing this destructively and unsustainably, creating a triple planetary crisis that undermines the ecosystem services on which we depend, and therefore our own well-being. We're destroying the planet's biodiversity to make space to feed our growing population. People and livestock now account for 96% of the total biomass of mammals on Earth, while all the wild mammals, from mice to whales, account for just 4% of that biomass. Air, water, and land pollution from chemicals and waste cause millions of human deaths annually. Almost a quarter of those deaths are caused by preventable environmental health risks, including pollution. In some countries, almost 20% of human deaths are attributable to air pollution alone. Climate change, resulting from human activity, is increasing the frequency of extreme weather events like heat waves and floods. It facilitates the spread of pathogens, causes desertification, compounds biodiversity loss, and threatens food security. The triple planetary crisis of biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change are closely interlinked, and they threaten the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So what can we do? It's clear that the triple planetary crisis cannot be solved by the environment sector alone. It's imperative that we collaborate, communicate, and coordinate with other sectors and disciplines across government and society. The One Health approach aims to do precisely that. By bringing together different sectors, One Health works to sustainably balance and optimize the health and well-being of people, animals, and ecosystems. Traditionally, One Health has been primarily focused on zoonotic disease and antimicrobial resistance through the collaboration of the animal and human health sectors. Although in theory the environment has always been part of the One Health approach, in practice this has not always been the case. And this needs to change now. The environment sector needs to engage and become a full and equal partner in One Health. The scope of One Health needs to expand to address the triple planetary crisis, and other sectors need to understand that there cannot be healthy people without a healthy environment. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how to illustrate the importance of integrating the environment into the One Health approach. First, an example on zoonotic disease, which, as you've heard, is one of the more traditional One Health topics. Land use change and habitat fragmentation is one of the major drivers of zoonotic spillover. Effective conservation of ecosystems can therefore prevent spillovers from happening in the first place. But climate change is altering the distribution of wild animal species and disease vectors, bringing into direct contact species that never co-occurred before, and increasing the opportunities for pathogens to jump from one species to another. Collaboration between the environment and public and animal health sectors can help forecast areas at higher risk of zoonotic spillover, where monitoring and surveillance need to be strengthened. An integrated approach allows us to foresee potential health threats and act proactively, ensuring the safety and well-being of our communities, livestock, and ecosystems. Industrialized food production relies on extensive land use change and heavy use of machinery and agrochemicals, contributing to biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution. Overuse of antimicrobials in agriculture promotes the development of antimicrobial resistance, which poses grave threats to both human and animal health. Indiscriminate use of pesticides undermines bee populations, which are paramount for pollinating our crops. Adopting more sustainable agricultural practices with reduced use of agrochemicals creates a healthier environment for pollinators, and when pollinators thrive, our food security and well-being are enhanced. The burning of fossil fuels and poor management of industrial and domestic effluents pollute our air and rivers, threatening the health of people and the environment. Investing in cleaner energy sources and production methods and effectively managing waste can foster healthier human populations and healthier ecosystems. When we keep our environments clean, we maintain indispensable ecosystem services and promote human health. We know we need to act now to address the triple planetary crisis. By participating in One Health, the environment sector can ensure that this message is heard by the other sectors. We must harness the power of collaboration through One Health to combat the triple planetary crisis and craft a future where life on Earth can thrive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Julian. He talked about triple planetary crisis and how to address them using One Health concept. Okay, I believe you have many questions, but in the interest of time, please allow me to conclude this session 1. And as you know, after 3 sessions, we have dinner, and our speaker will be there, so you can keep those questions and comment and directly discuss with them. Yeah. So with this, I would like to conclude session 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kugita, Ms. Edwards, Ms. Yashiro, and Mr. Blanc as well. I believe your presentations were an important wake-up call. We will now begin the second session for the evening on strengthening environmental dimensions in pandemic preparedness. I would like to invite the chair of the session, Coordinator for Health and the Environment, Division of Healthy Environments and Populations, World Health Organization, Regional Office for the Western Pacific, Ms. Sally J. Edwards, to return to the stage. I would also like to invite on stage the speakers for this session, namely Dr. Scott Newman, Head of One Health Regional Program, FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. In addition to his own presentation, Dr. Newman will also be presenting on behalf of the Government of Indonesia. Can we also have Dr. Hirofumi Kugita, a Regional Representative for Asia and the Pacific, WOAH, and Ms. Isabella Kotzil, Deputy Director General, International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. Ms. Edwards, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, as we move into this second session, what we really want to highlight is a focus on the key aspects of the environmental dimension of the One Health approach, namely pandemic preparedness. So far, limited attention has been paid to the upstream prevention efforts, where the environmental sector has a key role to play. The session highlights various perspectives and initiatives that focus specifically on the importance of upstream prevention. Firstly, I would like to introduce Dr. Scott Newman, Head of the One Health Regional Program at the FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. He will be talking to us about the collaboration with the environment and wildlife sectors. Dr. Scott.
Okay, good evening, and thank you again for everyone staying around to hear our presentations and learn a bit more about One Health. I think I'm technologically challenged. Okay, let's start again. I think as was mentioned earlier today, earlier this evening, One Health, as we envision it, really is not aiming to ask the environment sector to do a whole lot more work. Actually, what we're trying to do is take advantage of the work that you're already doing. And I think that the example that's featured here in this slide is really about the commitments and the hard work that goes into preparing different elements of multilateral environmental agreements. And you can see them all listed in the circle there. But probably what's most important to realize is that there's already been a lot of progress, whether it be in resolutions that have come out of CMS, Ramsar, CBD, or CITES. There's already a huge amount of information, and if you search for One Health or topics under One Health in these resolutions that have come out, and some of them date as far back, I think, as about 2010, because in 2006 and 7 we started to work on the highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreaks that were starting in Asia and made their way across to Europe and Africa. And as part of that, FAO and CMS put together what we call the Avian Influenza Task Force. It was a task force on avian influenza in wild birds. And as a result of that, we started feeding into the MOPS and COPS, and ultimately resolutions started to reflect some of these areas of work. So I think that it's important to recognize that there's already good momentum for many years, but where we have many other opportunities are particularly in the areas that reflect the triple planetary crisis. There's yet to really be good interventions made in relation to resolutions on those subjects, whereas there already has been some good progress on things related to zoonotic diseases and diseases that transmit between wildlife and livestock. There are also, I think, certain technical areas that the Ministry of Environment and Forestry and Natural Resource Management are positioned to really lead. And they're featured in the arrows here that are shown. I'm not going to go through all the details. The slides will be shared so you can look at them at your leisure. But the point is that there are definitely leadership roles that we want the environment sector to step up and take. And in Julian's presentation just prior, we heard some of them. A few are featured here. And again, the point of the second column is the relevance to SDGs and MEAs. This is to help you reaffirm that actually the leadership role is something that you're already involved in, and now we want to take it and apply it to the One Health issues. This second group of arrows that have just shown up are actually areas where the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resource Management professionals could contribute to or collaborate with the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Agriculture or other sectors. And so there is a role, but perhaps it's a supporting role and not necessarily the leadership role. And the last thing to mention is that all of these arrows and all of these commitments that you're already making and all this work you're already doing, it actually is already linked to this One Health Joint Plan of Action. And what I've listed here on the right side is the action tracks that are in that Joint Plan of Action and the relationship these topics play in relevance to that. So what we're saying as we go forward to deliver joint plans of action at national level is that actually a lot of your work is already being done and already relevant to this JPA. So I hope from this slide alone you can see you are relevant, you have a big role to play, and you're already doing it. You just may not be aware of how your work is impacting the One Health initiatives at this point. The next thing I want to point out is that these are 4 technical areas: sustainable livestock production, food safety, wildlife-based activities, and land use planning and management. These are 4 areas that we believe are easy entry points. These are topics and technical areas that I think will resonate if you think through these areas on how to apply them. That could be some first steps at national level for you to move forward in One Health. NDC commitments and Paris Agreement commitments, linking them with the agriculture sector's changes in sustainable livestock production or rice crop production. This is an easy connection to make. Food safety, working on dealing with markets and ensuring that where wildlife is sold, that wildlife is sold in a way that is safe and doesn't create food safety issues. Wildlife-based activities, this is a whole nother bracket of areas of work. It may be linked to wildlife hunting, it may be linked to wildlife farming, perhaps even trade of wildlife. And obviously, there are certainly certain CITES-related species that are off limits, but when you look at what is permitted, there are still plenty of room for regulations, permitting, and management of wildlife facilities that has to be taken on board. And as natural resource management professionals responsible for managing wildlife and the use of wildlife and even handling wildlife or having captive wildlife, all of this falls into your domain. And then finally, land use planning. I think, for me, the biggest thing that comes to mind is preventing encroachment on natural habitats or preventing encroachment on buffer zones in areas that we know either urban or farm encroachment can take place on. And so you're in a position to guide those processes and decisions. One Health, how do you do it at country level? Well, We've been working on a One Health monitoring tool. You can use other methods, but for us, this tool is a good first step because it evaluates a set of One Health indicators, and it actually looks at their relevance to the wildlife and environment sector. And so it's a starting point, it's a baseline, it's a way to know where you're at when we get going with One Health. Following the rollout of a tool like this or this tool itself, we identify the gaps, and then we look at what solutions or activities need to be implemented to move things forward. So happy to talk about that over a dinner and a drink later today if you want more details. The other thing I want you to remember, if you remember just a few things from what I say tonight, is there are two approaches that need to be taken on board when you go at home and start working on this. There need to be top-down initiatives, things that are government-led and high-level and come down, but they're also bottom-up, from community level or field level going back, and these two need to meet. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's not one direction. It's got to be both top-down and bottom-up approaches. This is a list. I'm not going to go through it, but you'll have it. These are top-down approaches or top-down initiatives. They involve things like establishing focal points by the environment sector to be part of One Health coordination mechanisms. They involve committing human and financial resources from the environment sector to One Health and so forth. These are the top-downs. The bottom-ups, again, I don't have time to go through them all, but these are some examples in these three technical areas where, for example, establishing a wildlife disease monitoring program by field officers who are out in the field looking at or surveying wildlife habitat or protected areas, having a system in place that is really like the eyes and ears on the ground for detecting sick and dying wildlife. This is an example of a bottom-up type approach. Or working with, waste management related to farms or wildlife facilities or such. All of this requires that wildlife managers and field personnel are trained appropriately and have the skill sets to implement these types of things, and also work with the local communities who are, again, part of that front line. When Makiko spoke, she mentioned this field training program that FAO has been developing in partnership with probably 50 or 60 different international partners globally during the period of COVID. And we're about to get moving with this program in a couple countries here in the region. So if you're interested with your country, please come find me and we can talk further. Finally, last slide, take-home messages. And I think, part of this is putting it in context and appreciating that you have an important role to play, and the contributions can really make One Health elevate or go to a next level. And that's really what we're here to try to help facilitate. And also recognizing that we need to deal with these ongoing calamities, the triple planetary crisis, a big pandemic that's taken huge impacts on people and the economy and the world at large. What we're asking for you to do as One Health champions at country level is to identify your focal points, get working with these national One Health coordination mechanisms that are in place, and we want you as equal partners, not just sitting there listening, but actually advocating for the issues that you are experts on and that need to be built into national One Health priorities. They need to go beyond diseases, AMR, and food safety. They have to incorporate pollution, climate change, and these other issues like loss of biodiversity and ecosystem services. We want you to support operationalizing One Health, and this will be done through the rollout of these One Health Joint Plan of Actions at national level. And so we hope that you'll be active participants in that process at country level. And then also we want to ensure that we build the capacity for in-service environment professionals to know what to do and how to do it and how to contribute well to One Health. And finally, I think one of the low-hanging fruit, and all of you have been tasked to do this, is the updating or revisions of the National Biodiversity Strategies and Action Plans. So these NBSAPs, instead of doing them alone, invite the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Agriculture to do them with you. Use a One Health lens to modify and update them. And I think that these are some initial first steps that would really help us move things forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Next, I would like to introduce a presentation on engagement of the wildlife and environment sector professionals to support One Health in Indonesia. Unfortunately, they couldn't be with us tonight, and so Dr. Scott is going to do that presentation for us. Don't worry, Dorian.
I apologize for speaking twice in a row. You probably want a different voice and person to look at. But this is, it's really a great honor to speak on behalf of the Directorate General Natural Resources and Ecosystem Conservation, and this is the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in the Republic of Indonesia. We've been working with them on moving some of this programming forward, and I think Indonesia is a great example where we've gotten some traction or making some progress. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. This training program is really something that we sort of thought about because there's already a training program for the in-service medical professionals. There's already a training program for in-service veterinary professionals, and there was nothing for wildlife and environment professionals. So we started thinking through what would that look like and what do we need to do. So this is really meant to be an interoperable One Health training program for the environment and wildlife sector so that they can contribute to One Health initiatives at country level. And you see that large list of different partners who have helped develop this, and you see all the important international organizations, universities, and NGOs that have been part of the process. The goal of this whole training program is to improve the understanding of the Ministry of Environment and how they can contribute to One Health, strengthen their capacity, both the HR capacity and institutional capacity, and then create this interoperable workforce that can work with the Ministries of Health and Agriculture. And ultimately, we're really trying to ensure that this engages the environment sector and creates long-term solutions so that issues that are important to the environment sector are integrated into policies and they're integrated into coordination mechanisms and programming. To start the process, there is a environment sector mapping and needs assessment tool, and you can see it pictured here basically with the country of Indonesia, and I would say also, just for your awareness, we did this in Bangladesh and we also did this in Thailand. We've gone through part 1 and part 2, which is identifying the stakeholders and starting to characterize the different types of working relationships and activities. This is a snapshot of what Indonesia's environment stakeholders looks like. A huge number, 63 in total were identified in the workshop. And as we did the mapping process and looked at where we wanted to go with the training program, it was determined that 36 of them were most relevant to the training program going forward. We then went through a series of different types of indicators with them, wildlife indicators, biodiversity and ecosystem indicators, One Health indicators, and competencies for One Health. And we sort of mapped out where they were at and what was important to them as a country. And just a sampling of some of the results of that, they said there's a need to complete data on wildlife disease reservoirs and hosts and arthropod vectors. And you know, I'm not going to read these, and we're trying to sort of speed up the time, but I mean, I think what you come out with is that, for me, a good understanding of their priorities, their issues, and also what the opportunities are for a training program to fill in gaps that they've identified by discussing these important issues. And I think at the end of the day, it sort of sets the scene for moving forward in the country. There also was a discussion about what their priorities are. From the Ministry of Environment, from the wildlife and environmental professionals, those responsible for natural resource management, what are their priorities? Not the One Health priorities that we've traditionally worked on in Indonesia and other countries, but what does the environment sector care about most? And we covered them under the categories of bushmeat, wildlife trade, environment, contamination, pollution, waste, and conflict or interaction. So the outcomes, perhaps some key points, is that they basically have many strengths, including the programming that's ongoing, but that there are still some room for improved enforcement, but that overall the country and the Environment Ministry is well poised to make interventions, participate in a training program, and then be part of the One Health solutions at country level. They did acknowledge also that they like these results from this exercise because it serves as a benchmark or a baseline. And then in the future, once training is implemented and they start to move in new directions, they'll have a way to evaluate the impact of the work that they're doing. So those are kind of the highlights from the work that we've done with Indonesia. And again, similar process has already been done in Bangladesh and in Thailand. And so we're hoping to move forward with implementation of the training starting next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would now like to reintroduce our next speaker, Dr. Kugita, who's going to give us a presentation on Nature for Health in Mongolia. Dr. Kugita.
Good evening again. Before going into Nature for Health, I would like to briefly introduce our organization, World Organization for Animal Health. This organization was established in 1924. So next year is our 100th anniversary. And when our organization was established, our name was French. So we were called as OIE. I suppose some of you have heard the name of OIE, but not WOAH, WOA. Last year we changed our acronym and logo to WOA. So sometimes WOA sounds a little bit strange, but you can say WOAH or WOA, or even OIE is still valid. So I hope you can remember our organization as one of partner under quadripartite. Okay, let me go into, could you move on to the next slide? So, okay. Yes, Nature for Health was initiated, so is a global initiative working with partners and countries on the relationship between the environment and health. To prevent next pandemics, there is a strong need to go upstream and focus on preventing disease spillover, jumping from animals to humans, and curbing the drivers of pathogen spillover event in the first place, because preventing pandemics cost far less than managing a global outbreak. As you know, 75% of new human infectious diseases originate from animals, and disease spillover is increasing due to human activities. So, Nature for Health act to prevent disease before transmission by addressing environmental aspect of health and strengthening One Health approach. Okay. Nature for Health was initiated by the German Ministry of Environment with a seed contribution of 50 million euro. UNEP, CBD, and German Ministry of Environment jointly launched a multi-partner trust fund for Nature for Health last year. The fund is to accelerate implementation of CBD Global Action Plan for Biodiversity and Health. Currently, Nature for Health has 8 founding partners, as you see in this slide, with leading roles in the One Health space, bringing together leading UN agencies, government, and international organizations that work in the field of environment and health. Okay, now let me move on to the Nature for Health project in Mongolia. This is the first phase of the project. 6 countries were selected according to the technical criteria and the quality of their application and to ensure a regional balance. For Mongolia, 3 ministries supported the application, which is truly One Health. WOAH is lead implementer for the project in Mongolia and will work with many stakeholders in the country, including quadripartite. Okay. I won't go into details about Mongolia context, but as you may know, Mongolia is quite a unique country, having small human population with huge livestock population and quite diverse wildlife. There exist several challenges in the country, including increasing risk of pandemics, which are caused by various factors such as land use change, habitat fragmentation, ecosystem degradation, and climate change. So there is strong need to balance development and conservation. A scoping phase of the project is to plan and conduct a systemic inquiry involving many stakeholders and develop an implementation project document. Through this process, we place critical importance on the needs for breaking barriers or silos and mainstreaming systemic, intersectoral, and participatory approaches to identify needs and co-developing pathways. Okay, this is last slide. Work plan for the scoping phase that was about to start now includes deciding on the scope of work, engaging stakeholders to define the situation of concern and identify potential solutions, and detail next step for the implementation phase. So this concludes my presentation. I look forward to working with you all and continuing sharing information and experiences to improve Nature for Health. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kugita. I would now like to invite Ms. Isabella Gosiol, Deputy Director General of the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, who will be talking on the triple planetary crisis.
Well, good evening, and thank you for bearing with us. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak about the challenges and the opportunities of taking a One Health approach in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. We are primarily a climate, environment, and development organization, so pushing us to think about these issues has been very healthy in itself. So the Hindu Kush Himalaya mountain region is one of the most vulnerable regions of the world. And this is because in terms of climate, temperatures in the mountains rise faster than in other landscapes due to a phenomenon called elevation-dependent warming. We've lost 70% of the original habitat over the last century in this region, and it's also one of the most polluted in the world, which, when combined, of course, increases significantly the exposure to various diseases and infectious diseases, and of course, multiple other health impacts. So in terms of some examples of what's happening and how we're responding, so these increasing temperatures, erratic rainfall, coupled with inappropriate urban planning and extensive urban-rural migration is exposing people to many new diseases which have previously not been prevalent at higher altitudes, whether this is malaria, dengue, leishmaniasis, chikungunya. And these are coming into areas where the health systems are not attuned to tackling such vector-borne diseases, and which, of course, you can imagine presents significant risks to human populations. But also these same factors of rainfall and migration and poor planning are increasing the risk of death and injury as a result of floods and landslides. Some of you may know that today there was a significant event in Sikkim resulting in the deaths, and with many people still unaccounted for. But also these events are increasing exposure to waterborne diseases such as typhoid and dysentery, and we're increasingly seeing outbreaks of such diseases. So at ICIMOD, we are working to build the capacity of forecasting, but we should be doing now far more in terms of linking forecasting and early warning with disease outbreaks, not only in the short term, but also in the medium and long term. Take biodiversity loss, whether this is the progressive erosion of agricultural or livestock biodiversity, especially in these areas which have been very highly adapted to unique high altitude environments. So take yak herding, for example, for various policy and institutional reasons, the movements of yaks and their pastoralists have been restricted, increasingly restricted over the last 6 decades. And these movement restrictions have resulted in increased inbreeding of yaks, resulting in reduced physical fitness, reduced productivity of wool, of meat, of milk, but also increasing the yak exposure to new diseases and the potential transmission to other animals, wildlife, and possibly humans. So again, at ICIMOD, we are doing what we can to respond. We're building new management approaches. We're working with yak cooperatives to improve the management of these high altitude livelihoods and their ecosystems, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. Another example is the increasing simplification of crops and crop biodiversity, again, increasing exposure to crop pests and diseases, as well as reducing nutritional diversity. Now, again, we've been working on these issues. We look at this primarily from an environmental perspective, but we should also now be far more cognizant of the fact that these changes are having significant health impacts, and the economics of this are significant for our countries. Our region, of course, is also the source of many highly valuable medicinal plants. And again, there's another important health link here, that these plants are used for various treatments. They're very high value, but unfortunately they are being over-harvested, and that is resulting in declining ecosystem health. Again, we are trying to respond mainly from a management and over-harvesting perspective, but again, we should be looking at this also from a health perspective. Finally, air pollution. We've already heard about the very negative impacts this is having on human health. Our region is the most polluted in the world now. That means millions of people are breathing in toxic air, reducing life expectancy and triggering, in the long term, multiple other diseases. But again, it's not only humans that are affected by pollution, but also crops and biodiversity, and our glaciers are melting faster because of the deposition of black carbon. Again, multiple impacts this is having. And of course, we continue to work to tackle pollution. We are building capabilities in monitoring pollution. We're aiming to raise public awareness. Taking a health lens for this is also extremely important. We're working on regional frameworks to combat air pollution, but of course, we must be mindful that there is actually no global framework to combat air pollution. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the One Health issue today. All these factors, of course, contribute towards a reduced resilience to future pandemics. So as we move forward, we will continue to work on these together and in an integrated way as promoted by the One Health approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those great words. And you've heard some great presentations in this session, and I really would encourage you to corner any one of our panelists during the reception that will follow immediately after this, because unfortunately we don't have time to open up to the floor, but everybody will stay around, so please do ask your questions and interact with our panelists at that point. With that, I would like to invite Scott back again to the stage. I mean, not to the stage, to the podium, to just acknowledge the European Union.
I think, as many of you may be aware, this event this evening is really being sponsored by the European Union. And so we're grateful to the EU for its financial support to this event, which is provided through a project titled Working Together to Fight Antimicrobial Resistance, AMR, supported by the EU and implemented in partnership with the quadripartite in the Asia-Pacific region. Of course, we can all recognize that AMR is a One Health issue, but in particular, the EU also has a section of that proposal and grant that was offered to us that is specifically focused on pandemic prevention. And we believe that engagement of the environment sector is one of those critical elements that needs to take place for us to be able to prevent pandemics, because in particular, the role that the environment sector plays is really upstream interventions that prevent pandemics from happening in the first place. And so these are really a great opportunity. The EU has shared a vision with the quadripartite of establishing a One Health approach to AMR, but also in light of COVID, providing the possibility to contribute to preparedness for future pandemics through regional coordination. One of the key challenges that the support is seeking to address is to understand and promote the role of the environment in the emergence and transmission of AMR and zoonotic diseases, and focusing on One Health national action planning, surveillance, private sector engagement, and research. So with that, I just want to again acknowledge and appreciate the support that we've received from the European Union as the quadripartite, and also the support that allows us to have this event, and as well what is waiting for us on the other side of that wall, which is dinner and liquid refreshments. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, the only thing left for me to say is to thank our panelists very much. I would also like to invite the chair of the next session, Mr. Safanian Nawadra, up to the stage while we all watch a short video on Nature for Health. Thank you.
Can I also ask the speakers for this panel to come up, please? Those of you who are here physically.
A warm thank you to Ms. Edwards, Dr. Newman, Dr. Kugita, Ms. Kotsil, and the Indonesian government as well for sharing how the One Health objectives can be and are being actioned. Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering the third and final session of the evening before we move on to dinner. This session is on promoting actions to strengthen the interface between human health, animal health, and the environment through One Health. Let's recognize the chair of the session, the Director General Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program, Ms. Safanaya Nawadra. And can we also have on stage these esteemed speakers, Mr. Mushtaq Mehman, UNEP Asia and the Pacific Office, Dr. Anil Jasingha, Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka, His Excellency Sakiusa Tumbuna, Assistant Environment Minister, Fiji, and we will also have a recorded presentation by Ms. Sivapon Rangsianon, Director, Transboundary Air Pollution Subdivision, Air Quality and Noise Management Division, Pollution Control Department, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, Thailand. Ms. Nawadra, it is over to you to chair the session.
Thank you, MC. We're almost there, last stretch. While session 2 specifically focused on the environmental dimensions in the pandemic preparedness, this session will try and highlight the other important aspects related to the environmental dimensions of One Health, such as AMR, or antimicrobial resistance, pollution, and climate change, and how when we address these together through One Health, we could play a role in addressing these issues in a holistic and integrated way. I'll go straight into introducing our speakers. Our first speaker is a colleague, Mr. Mushtaq Mehman, of the Regional Coordinator for Chemicals and Pollution Action for UNEP Asia. and the Pacific Office.
Thank you, Safer. So, good morning. Feel like 9 in the morning, so you will not be feeling tired. And as I prepared
There's a short video I think they want to show.
You want to show? Yeah, that's better. Then my presentation will be half, if you do the bit. Okay.
By 2050, it is estimated that millions of people could die every year due to antimicrobial resistance. By 2030, it could cause global GDP to drop by $3.4 trillion and push 24 million people into extreme poverty. But what is antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, and why should we be concerned? Antimicrobials help treat infections and diseases in humans, animals, and plants, and allow us to perform complex surgeries with greater success. You may know them as antibiotics, antifungals, antiparasitic, or even as disinfectants. As more antimicrobials are used and released into our environment, microbes are adapting into superbugs and are one of the biggest threats to global health. With growing resistance, many antimicrobials that are used to prevent and treat infections are becoming ineffective. But this is not just a human health issue, it's also an environmental issue. AMR is linked to the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and waste. Our changing climate affects AMR. Higher temperatures can be associated with increases in AMR infections. Extreme weather patterns can also contribute to antimicrobial resistance. As flooding increases, wastewater spreads faster, accelerating the spread of resistant microbes. Impact on microbial biodiversity may affect carbon and methane cycles, which are directly involved in regulating Earth's climate. Microbes inhabiting natural environments are sources of pharmaceutical discovery. However, in recent decades, land use changes and climate change have altered soil's microbial diversity, which may affect our ability to make medical breakthroughs. Pollution in key sectors of the economy contributes to the development, transmission, and spread of AMR. Reducing pollution created by the pharmaceuticals, agricultural, and healthcare sectors and municipal waste and wastewater is essential to reduce the emergence, transmission, and spread of superbugs. We need to tackle antimicrobial resistance through a One Health response, which refers to the interconnectedness of human, animal, plant, and environmental health. By working together to establish strong policies and regulation and prevent and manage chemical and biological pollutants, we can limit the development and spread of superbugs. To reduce the spread of superbugs, the world must cut down pollution today.
Thank you. So, as I had quite few slides, but as the rule for One Health is that you enjoy some food and then you take away all the remaining food to enjoy later. So the only few slides I will be playing here and rest as a food for thought you can bring home. And so like coming here, now this superbug, antimicrobial resistance, which is close to UNEP's heart and UNEP's executive director's heart also. And that's where this whole dimension is coming, that we are looking at this. So basically, there's some key messages. I will be just putting that. You already watched the video, which we prepared for, and we launched this report. So one is that the environment plays a key role in development, transmission, and spread of AMR. This is very, very important, that environment is really linked with the development, transmission, and the spread. So we have to be really very careful about that. And then number two is also that when we talk about the environment, basically it's a combination of the climate change, nature loss, and pollution, working together for the development, spread, and transmission of AMR. That's the message we are giving. And you already watched the video, so I'm not going to repeat that, but the slides you can take home to go through these messages from there. But the point I want to come here, that AMR is one of the major areas under the One Health program. So as 4 of these major organizations are working from different angles, you will see that how AMR also evolves around those 4 different areas. That's where I want to come to my next message, that it comes from the pharmaceutical or the chemical production and those sites. It comes from the healthcare facilities, hospitals, and so on. It comes from the agriculture and food sector. It comes from or transmitted through the waste and wastewater and also the air pollution and so on. So basically, that's why these 4 organizations are very, very important that join the hands to address AMR, as you see the linkages of AMR across the 4 organizations we are working together. That's the second message for that. And this Blessing for Superbugs, I think if you have a time, is go word by word. Otherwise, you can glance through this report. This is one of the efforts UNEP make. Now, other point which I want to make that we already heard from Scott, big thanks to the EU for this project, and this is already there. Now, other thing is that in addition to this ministerial forum, UNEP and WHO joined hands to organize the Asia Pacific Regional Forum for Health and Environment. And for the current round, Indonesia is the chair, and the senior level officials meeting will be on 22nd, 23rd November in Jakarta, and then the ministerial segment will be next year. And again, this AMR, and this is one of the key areas we will be looking there. And then, now the point here I want to bring that how much UNEP has invested in this whole sector of waste, wastewater, and air pollution. That is where we are addressing, I would call the co-benefits, including addressing the AMR issues. How? For example, when we started this COVID and the executive director set up the 4 pillars for, and if you recall the issues of the COVID, and I was trying to support or lead the pillar 1, which is on the COVID waste and so on. So you can see the lockdowns, value chains broken down, and everything went really, it's a vicious circle we were creating. And to avoid that, preparedness is the key. And that's where, again, this AMR issue is coming, that how well prepared we are for that one. So on the COVID-19 also, and then looking on the water security issues. As we know, the access to the clean water and sanitation and so on. So this is again linked with the issues with the AMR transmission and so on as well. So we are working quite intensively on that. And under the COVID-19, we developed another also part of the work on the water systems. Also, we did that to see the monitoring also the COVID concentrations, and similar monitoring systems can be established for AMR. And that's what the UNEP's major learning came from working on the COVID and water-based epidemiology and so on. So this report was prepared. And then another report under the COVID-19 on the plastics, especially the microplastics and also in the wastewater and so on, that how that transmission of vectors can happen. And that also gives a lot of a ground break for us to work on the AMR in the wastewater sector. And another important point is that as we are intensively working on air pollution, UNEP, and tomorrow also we have a side event during lunchtime, so please join. So in the air pollution also, the latest studies show that association between the particulate matter, PM10, 2.5, and the clinical antibiotic resistance, a global review. So this proves that also the air pollution has a direct linkages with the transmission and the spread of AMR. And that's where UNEP has a lot of investments in the air pollution management and air quality management. So my last point is that this region, as our Deputy Executive Director also highlighted, Asia Pacific. If you look on the Asia Pacific growth rates, if you look on the middle income, the affordability levels and so on, so you see the consumption patterns, and consumption patterns are not sustainable. And those consumption patterns are pushing, whether it be the food sector, and that also using the antibiotics to produce more like a food and so on, including in the animals and so forth. So you're looking at that consumption issues which are very high. Another point is the role of digital technologies is becoming very, very important, whether you are talking about the monitoring of AMR, whether you are talking about how to stop the spread of the AMR and so on. So whether you're talking about the apps, you're talking about the drones technology and the water drones and so on. So digital technologies are playing very, very important role. And again, UNEP has dedicated, established digital technology sector as well. So at that note, I would encourage to think through that how we close this loop through circular economy for sustainable consumption and production for all these sectors, whether it be the health, whether it be the food sector, and whether it be our other consumption, water and so on. So this will also help us to reduce the AMR pandemic chances and to be prepared or to be resilient for future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mustak. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our host. Our next speaker will be Dr. Neil Jasinge, Secretary for the Ministry of Environment in Sri Lanka, and he will be sharing with us the experiences of Sri Lanka in linking AMR, pollution, climate change, and One Health. Dr. Jasinge.
Thank you very much once again, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have slides. I know all of us are very tired now. It's a long day and tomorrow going to be a longer day. So I think the room next waiting for us. So I think my topic is basically with regard to the Sri Lankan experience from the environmental and other angles. If you take from the environment angle, I think what we have to do is to reduce negative interactions between humans, animals, plants, and environment, and then increase the positive interactions. And also, mainly in the environment, with regard to One Health, with regard to preventing epidemics or pandemics, it's about preventing spillover effect all in all. So if you take in Sri Lanka, I won't say, I don't want to paint a rosy picture, but then we have certain things in place, like for example, conservation forests and sanctuaries. 35% of land mass is covered with the protected areas, the conservation forests and sanctuaries. So, I mean, this will certainly reduce the animal human negative interactions. And then we have so-called environment protected areas, EPAs. That's gazetted by the Central Environment Authority. There are about 10 of them. When you take EPA, Environment Protection Area, there are authorized activities and unauthorized activities. So through unauthorized activities, we could certainly contribute. And then, of course, Sri Lanka being a very high biodiversity country, when you take out 35%, of protected areas plus EPS, but still it's, there are a lot of biodiversity plus areas where humans live with nature. So therefore we came up with a new concept which is called ESA or environment sensitive areas. Basically the scores were given on biodiversity in certain areas, and if you get a good score on biodiversity going by various traits, so that area can be sort of identified as an environment sensitive area. So the primary idea is that to preserve the biodiversity with the involvement of the community, local community. So the community engagement is the key strategy in ESA concept. And then of course this city where we are now, the Colombo is the first Ramsar capital city in South Asia. And there, of course, there'll be excursion tomorrow, one of the wetland areas in Colombo. I'm sure some of you would be visiting. And there again, we try to sort of apply certain conservation measures. Now we have about 1 million in city of Colombo, and then lot of wetlands. You could see if they are not really looked after well, then once again the human animal environment interaction will go on a negative direction. And then there's a project that we are going to start basically in the wet zone plantations where because of plantations there are forest patches here and they are isolated. So I mean there is historical habitat destruction. So therefore through this project we try to in 6 districts we try to connect animal corridors so that the animals can move around within their territory. So these are some of the environmental interventions, but I believe that the cornerstone is the sustainable consumption and production. I think this is where the mankind has gone wrong, and now we try to solve problems. And then from the public health angle, as we know, there is no human health without ecosystem health. If you take in Sri Lanka, we have in the Ministry of Health epidemiology unit, and there is the surveillance going on. For example, one is SARI, that is severe acute respiratory illness. That is kind of a sentinel surveillance, and where you try to spot some fever going up at early stage. And also there are other means of early identification of outbreaks in the public health system. The idea is for early warning, early action, and early management. So through this we could identify emerging diseases earlier on, so that it will not spread into epidemics. And similarly, there are other disease surveillance like say leprosy program, the rabies control program. So there are so many such programs. And this is because historically Sri Lankan public health system has been strong. Of course, now due to economic downturn, of course, all the sectors we struggle. So therefore, actually, the financing, technology, and the capacity is actually we were doing well, but then we come across certain critical problems because of the present situation. And then IHR, that is International Health Regulations, there again, through IHR, we go for the preparedness and response. And then, of course, during COVID-19, we were able to improve our lab services. That is another very important area in One Health. So we were able to improve some good number of BSL-3 labs in Sri Lanka. And of course, due to COVID, another area which was developed was risk communication. Risk communication was not really identified as a good tool and a subject, but then now the following COVID, it has been really appreciated. And then my colleague mentioned about AMR. Just in the health sector, I think basically from the invention of penicillin, so this antibiotic era began, and then these antibiotics were invented initially for humans, but now it is being consumed not only by humans, animals, and in agriculture and whatnot. So, I mean, but see, even now, usually, you won't find human being who won't consume antibiotics, and the prescription patterns matter. So that's among medical fraternity, which is difficult sometimes to handle. And then in the past, the over-the-counter issuance of antibiotics had been, common in this part of the world, but there's some control in that as well. And also streamlining healthcare waste. Now, my colleague was talking about pollution and the video as well. So streamlining healthcare waste and the other waste is very important. Now, when it comes to healthcare institutions, they need to take EPL or Environment Protection License, and then scheduled waste management licenses, especially when it comes to bad waste. So these practices are in place to a greater extent. And then together, the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, Veterinary Services, Fisheries, all of us put together recently, and then AMR multi-sector action plan was prepared just few months ago. And then also animal health surveillance under veterinary and animal health is being there historically. So that has also to a greater extent led to a prevention of eruption of emerging diseases, the endemics. So then another thing is quality of antimicrobials. That's a great, big concern because, as you know, there can be a lot of low quality antibiotics, and the low quality drugs has been topic in this country even recently. So because if the antibiotic doesn't contain the required dose, and then also if you don't prescribe for a required period, and also if you prescribe in a haphazard manner, that will certainly give way for antimicrobial resistance. So that's my small presentation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Jasinge. Our pre-recorded presentation from Ms. Siwapon Rungsianon, Director for Air Quality and Noise Management Division from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of the Kingdom of Thailand, will be made available to us on web in the interest of time. I now invite the final speaker, His Excellency the Honorable Sakyusa Tumbuna, Assistant Minister in the Prime Minister's Office of Fiji, responsible for climate change and environment, and he will be speaking to us on their experiences on climate change impacts and One Health. Mr. Tumbuna.
Thank you very much, Sefa. The effects of climate change for Fiji are multiple, and amongst the most severe are the impacts on public health: extreme heat, variable rainfall patterns, natural disasters, and increasing transmission rates of waterborne and vector-borne diseases, among the most common effects of climate change on health and safety that have been observed in Fiji over the last few years. I just want to share my experience based on the experience that happened to my village in Fiji. I live on a village near a coastal area, and for the last 50 years, we have seen quite a significant impact of climate change on my village. It's close to a major town, which is our capital city, and previously our forefathers used to go out to fish, and of course, fishing was their major form of livelihood, and they are able to sell fish at Suba City. For the last 10 years, we have noticed increasing bleaching of corals and increasing pollution affecting our sea resources, particularly seashells, and also we have noticed declining quantity of fish. And also we have noticed that there is an increasing incidence of health diseases, particularly food poisoning, affecting villages. So it affects the food security of our people. We have declining food supply, where people do not have adequate food to eat, and at the same time they don't have fish to sell, which results in declining income and livelihoods. So, and these are happening to most of our coastal towns. And government is trying to promote whatever it can do. We have an Environmental Management Act, which the government is trying to enforce. But at the same time, we notice that there is a lack of capacity within the Department of Environment to ensure that they police and effectively implement the Act, the Environmental Management Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On our behalf, I'd like to thank our panelists for keeping it brief and allowing us to get to dinner. Just one reflection, maybe to sum up what I've heard from this session. And that is, it's only we who think in dimensions and sectors. Nature and natural systems continue to follow divine design and operate as one holistic system. We start to show wisdom when we start to go back to that original design. Thank you very much. I hand back to the MC.
Thank you, Mr. Nawadra, and our esteemed speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the close of tonight's event, and in order to deliver reflections on the event and closing remarks, I would like to invite Dr. Hirofumi Kugita.
Thank you very much. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation to you staying with us so late this evening. I don't want to repeat many things talked in this side event. I just like to thank UNEP, our colleagues of UNEP regional office, particularly Makiko, and our colleagues from FAO, Scott, who are taking lead to organizing this event. Thank you very much, and I'd like to give them a round of applause. And can I hand over to Scott? Or just close? Just close. Okay. Thank you very much, Scott, for your kindness. So now we can enjoy dinner. Thank you very much once again for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kugita. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being a wonderful audience and for the important work that you do in making this a safer world for us all. Please enjoy a dinner reception which has been laid out for you in the room just beyond this hall. Once you exit the hall, just take 2 lefts and you will be there. Thank you once again, and on behalf of all organizers, we wish you a delightful rest of the evening.